Madam Chair, members of the commission, we're now live.
Good evening and welcome to the May 28th, 2025 meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Karen Burdett and I am the chair, and I will now ask the commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Mark Dominiani.
Cristina Arado.
Jeffrey Haynes.
Julie Pelletier.
This is Commissioner Doman.
Michael Galway.
Laura DePasquale, Historic Preservation Staff.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff.
Devin Murtha, Historic Preservation Staff.
Remotely, Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you all very much. The first item on our agenda this evening are the historic area work permits. Have the work permits been duly advertised?
Yes, Madam Chair, they were advertised in the May 14th edition of the Washington Times.
Thank you. If anyone is here to testify for any of the cases, please give a speaker form to the staff and they will let us know that you are here to address one of the cases. We are going to begin by expediting the cases we believe can be expedited based on the staff reports. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to item 1A at 5918 Cedar Parkway, Chevy Chase? Item 1C at 10001 Menlo Avenue, Silver Spring, and 1D at 3120 Lee Street, Silver Spring.
Madam Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with staff reports based upon the record before us in consideration of the recommendations of the local advisory panels and including the conditions recommended by staff. Hop number 1114601 at 5918 Cedar Parkway, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1093939 at 10001 Menlo Avenue, Silver Spring. And hop number 1115491 at 3120 Lee Street, Silver Spring.
Is there a second?
This is Commissioner Galway. I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions or abstentions? No, then the motion passes unanimously. So these cases are approved tonight. If there are any questions, you can speak to staff tomorrow during regular business hours. We appreciate your work to preserve your properties and in working with staff to submit easily and approvable work permits. The first HOP case we will hear tonight is HOP number item 1B at 7520 Carroll Avenue, Tacoma Park. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there's a staff report. This is Devin Murtha, Historic Preservation Staff, presenting for the HOP number 1107938. The backgrounds and standards of review. This is a contributing resource to the Tacoma Park Historic District. It was constructed circa 1920. It's reviewed under Chapter 24A8, the Tacoma Park Historic District Guidelines, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. As you can see, it is a corner lot property at the intersection of Carroll Ave and Jefferson Ave on the border of the Tacoma Park Historic District. The proposal is to install a fence on the property, a combination of 4-foot tall picket fence and 6-foot tall vertical board fence. There's also a proposed area of 3-foot tall picket fence in the corner right here. So the site has specific conditions. It is located on this corner lot at the intersection of Carroll and Jefferson Avenue. It has a large retaining wall on the south front and east right elevations. It's located at the edge of the historic district, and it currently has a combination 3-foot picket and 3-foot chain link fence with mesh. This is the view from Jefferson Avenue, where you can more clearly see the retaining wall. At its highest point, it measures a little bit under 6 feet, and then at its lowest point on this elevation, about 3 feet. And you can see these are the approximate measurements from this photo. So the proposal shows that in the front elevation around the front yard, the existing 3-foot picket fence will be replaced by a 4-foot cedar picket fence. And then also the area of 3-foot high picket fence in that corner. On the east rear yard, so right here, the existing 3-foot chain link mesh fence will be replaced, or is proposed to be replaced, with a 6-foot tall solid board fence, like the one right here. This is just to show what a 6-foot tall board fence might look like and where the approximate location of the fence would be in relationship to the street. And finally, the applicant is also proposing to install a 6-foot board fence on this elevation adjacent to the neighboring property on the east left rear yard. So according to the Tacoma Park Historic District guidelines, all alterations to contributing buildings within the district should respect existing environmental settings, landscaping, and patterns of open space. The majority of fences along the right-of-way in Tacoma Park are picket fences that are less than 4 feet tall. However, there are some select examples of 6-foot tall board fences on corner lots in Tacoma Park. Many of these examples are located off of Carroll Avenue. Staff was not able to find examples of 6-foot tall board fencing installed on top of retaining walls in the district. So here's a few examples. This is a corner lot located at 7428 Carroll Avenue. In 2007, the HPC approved the replacement of a 6-foot tall board fence for the rear of the property here. So this is Carroll Avenue. Right across the street at 7429 Carroll Avenue, the HPC also approved a replacement of a 6-foot tall board fence on a corner lot in 2013. You can see it right here. And then at 7336 Carroll Avenue, there's another 6-foot tall board fence. I wasn't able to find a hop for this. It might predate the HPC review, or it may just have been a replacement. It's on a high visibility intersection at the corner of Carroll Avenue and Lee Street. So staff finds that the proposed 4-foot picket fence is compatible with the character of the historic district and maintains the patterns of open space. Staff finds that the 6-foot board fence on the rear right east elevation is not compatible with the character of the district. On top of the retaining wall, the fence would measure 9 to 10 feet from the sidewalk. And then staff finds that the proposed 6-foot board fence on the rear left west elevation adjacent to the neighboring property is compatible and minimally visible from the right-of-way. So staff recommends the HPC approve the proposal with the condition that the fence on the east elevation of the rear yard adjacent to Jefferson Avenue measure no more than 4 feet tall, and staff requests feedback on the appropriateness of board fencing versus picket fencing in this location. Any questions?
Any questions for staff? Commissioner Doman.
You're making a recommendation for the east, the right east elevations to be 4 foot, not 6 foot, because of the high stonework that I guess that precedes it, underneath it. I think this is appropriate. I'm not arguing with that. I don't believe the homeowners here has this been discussed with the homeowner that they would be denied a 6 foot and that you're recommending 4 foot, and have they agreed to 4 foot?
I sent them the staff report with the condition that stated that staff was recommending that it be no taller than 4 feet. They didn't respond to the initial email, but they did send testimony saying that they thought the overall project was appropriate. They didn't specifically address the fence condition.
So,
They also did not write back saying that they had an issue with it.
okay, you answered my question, thanks.
Any other questions? And I just want to clarify that the Jefferson Street is abuts Sligo Creek Parkway Park. So across Jefferson, it is a park setting, there'll never be a house across the street in that direction. There it is, yeah. So there'll never be a house built across Jefferson Street from them. And it is a fairly short street with a fairly limited number of residences along it. If there's no other questions, would anybody like to have an opinion on this? If not, then we'll go straight and vote. Or can I have a motion?
Well, I'll express an opinion first.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Haynes.
I think I agree with staff's comments about the potential height, a 6-foot fence over on top of a 4 or 5 foot retaining wall would be a very tall visual barrier, physical barrier along Jefferson, and would alter the streetscape that is typical in the area. So I certainly feel that a 4-foot fence is more appropriate. I would prefer to see an open picket fence, but I could maybe support a board-on-board fence starting at the back of the addition versus what looks to be a back of the original house. So maybe a little bit farther back. And again, maybe to balance a sense of privacy in the backyard, but I think it could be pulled back to the back face of the addition.
Any other comments? Commissioner Pelletier.
It's a comment and a question. Why the 3-foot high fence at the corner? Why not just continue the 4-foot high fence all the way across? Is there a method to this?
It might be a site distance issue.
Because the grade is so high there, transportation typically requires that fences at corners be lowered to such a degree that you don't cause a sight distance issue when cars are pulling up to the intersection, that they be able to see around the corner.
Okay.
That's my best guess. I've seen that frequently with corner lots, that the fence has to come down, and this is raised up on the grade already at that corner of Jefferson and Carroll.
Okay. It's going to look kind of bizarre, I think. And this photo that we're looking at, that yellow fence where you've got the 6-foot fence, that the suggestion from staff is to lower that to be a 4-foot fence, correct?
That's correct.
But you have it as open picket, and they're talking about doing it as solid board, right?
Yeah, they propose solid board.
Okay. I think I would agree with Commissioner Haynes to keep the pickets going further down the street before you change to the solid board. I think it's going to be kind of like, I think he was saying at the end of the back addition. I think it's kind of a strange lack of transition there, I guess, between the picket and the solid fence. But other than that, I have no comment. I agree with the recommendation.
Any other comments or commentary? I'll add mine. I think I prefer the picket in general for all the fencing, because it is a very quiet location. And with that retaining wall, it's not like you're going to have anybody walking past looking over the 3-foot fence, because it's going to be at 8 feet at that point, the top of it. But with pickets, I mean, you get the impression of privacy of some sort. But I don't have any issue. I agree with staff. And I would just want to confirm, you are talking about the 6-foot fence against the adjacent property on the west side, and that could be board, solid.
Yes, the only recommendation that staff was making was that along Jefferson Avenue, there be no fencing that was taller than 4 feet.
Okay. So our motion, do we want to take a vote on picket versus board, or just leave it up to the applicant that they can do what they want as far as picket or board around the Jefferson side?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Doman?
if I assume are we still asking questions to staff, or is this council thing?
No, go ahead.
Anyway, I more or less agree. The way this is worded in here, staff is supportive of a picket or board fencing in this section, which is what we're talking about, and going from 6 foot down to 4 foot. I would be agreeable to change that wording to just, would be supportive of a picket fencing in this section and 4 foot. It's almost the same as what's worded in here, but keeping it open as opposed to board. I'd like to see that.
Commissioner Galway?
Yes, Commissioner Galway, looking at that last photograph, I think converting from the 4-foot existing picket to even a 4-foot solid fence absolutely changes the visibility from the street. So I think, Commissioner Haynes, I think the way that you presented it, I would support that. Pull that 6-foot fence back, keep that picket beyond the edge of the house back to the north side of the property. Do whatever they want to do on the other opposing side, and maintain the 4-foot picket where it's shown here in the photograph.
Commissioner Dominiani?
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I would just add my agreement, especially for a corner lot like this where you're viewing the house from 2 angles along 2 streets. I think having a picket fence that maintains the site to this historic home is going to be nicer than a solid board fence the whole way. So I would support modifying that condition to strike the word sort of solid or board fencing and instead keep it as a picket.
Okay, so what we are saying is the motion would be we concur with staff's recommendations, 4-foot fence, except against the adjacent property, it can be 6. And that along the front of the house in Jefferson, it would be a picket fence the whole length. Or, yep, picket or board.
What you might say, all
Fencing, just-
fencing on the east side of the property must be
Picket.
4 feet tall or shorter picket fence. And you can strike the phrase, staff is supportive of picket or board fencing for this section because it's irrelevant.
Very good. Then I'll make a motion that the HBC approve hop number 1107938 at 7520 Carroll Avenue, that the fence on the east side, the Jefferson Street side, be 4 feet for the entire property line, and also that it be a open picket fence. The solid board on board is appropriate for the west interior lot, and that is fine.
Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Pelletier, a second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Any nays or abstentions? If not, this motion passes. This hop is approved with the changes. Thank you. And thank you for the very good staff report. Appreciate it. Our next hop this evening to rehear is item 1E at 10012 Menlo Avenue, Silver Spring. Is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. Give me 1 second, please. All right, this is a staff report for 10012 Menlo Ave in Silver Spring. This is actually a revision to a previously approved hop. It's for the house that you see in front of you. Again, this is a nominal resource, so it was built post-1935, actually in 1946, within the Capitol View Historic District. So this is to be reviewed under Chapter 24A, the approved and adopted Capitol View Park and Vicinity Master Plan Amendment, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. Again, back in December of 2024, the HPC approved a HOP to remove the roof and demolish the rear wall, construct an expansion out the back, and a second floor of the house. So again, this was the house pre-rehabilitation. It was a stucco-sided concrete exterior. So the applicant proposes to revise the siding treatment approved from the December 2024 HOP approval. The approval was to install hardy panels on the second floor with caulk vertical joints and then flashing trim at the horizontal pieces. The applicant now proposes to install 1 inch by 3 inch vertical trim pieces covering the seams between the panels. So again, this is going to take you through. In the upper left is the elevation as, the front, the first floor of all of the elevations is actually drawn incorrectly. They are proposing to retain the stucco siding, but what is shown in the second floor and in the gable ends is accurate. So you have vertical ribs at 4-foot intervals where the seams of the hardy panels are. Again, this is the right side, and then the rear. So again, only the vertical ribs will be installed. Horizontal joints will retain the horizontal bead reveal. This is the piece, the trim piece that was included in the original HOP, which is just a metal piece of metal flashing. The applicant provided us with a sort of a precedent image, but again, only the vertical members are going to be installed. The horizontal members are going to have this small trim piece. So you will be able to see a horizontal element, but it won't be as prominent as the proposed vertical ribs. So the resource is designated as nominal, which is the equivalent of non-contributing in many other historic districts. And staff finds that the overall effect of the wall treatment is unlike traditionally built construction, and that the previously approved flat wall profile, coupled with the flat windows and very, very flat trim, created a sort of contemporary design that was, its flatness was part of the overall design aesthetic, and that the proposed vertical ribs disrupt that flatness. And even under a lenient level of review, staff finds that the character is more consistent with a commercial architecture than residential, which contravenes standards 224A8, B2, and D. And we encourage the contractor to identify an alternative caulking product that may be less prone to shrinking and cracking. And that was the primary reason that the applicant proposed the revision, is that he was concerned that the white caulking joints would crack, and it would both, it could be material failure that allowed water to infiltrate, or would just be aesthetically undesirable. And that staff finds that if aesthetics were the primary concern, a darker paint color would help minimize the visibility of those imperfections. So staff recommends that the HPC deny the proposed vertical trim pieces under 24A8 as outlined in the staff report. And this is something that the HPC doesn't usually do, and staff rarely recommends. But staff found that an alternative solution, that wood or fiber cement clapboards or lap siding in any reveal dimension, would be compatible with the character of the property in the surrounding historic district. So staff recommends that the HPC approve fiber cement or wood lap siding clapboards in any dimension, with final approval authority delegated to staff under 24A8, B2, and D. And the reason behind this is that this would allow the applicant to proceed with an alternative solution and not have to return for a future HPC meeting. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Commissioner Pelletier?
The elevations that you're showing in the report, I don't think are the same as the ones that are in the board book. The ones that I'm looking at don't have the vertical I was confused. I thought we were doing horizontal joints and,
I described that incorrectly
Oh,
when we were in the work session, so my
But the-
apologies. I
but-
I was wrong.
the elevations, these elevations didn't make it into the board book, the ones that are in the staff report. Oh,
They
at the
should be
end? Am I missing something?
compiled at the end with the application materials.
Mm-mm.
No.
Nope,
Do not?
nope.
Then I truly apologize for that.
Hold on 1 second. Commissioner Galway, do you have them? What page in your board book? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
The vertical battens aren't shown in the book.
Okay, our apologies about that. We can, let's pull up the staff report and I can share out, or Dan, do you want to share out the images from the staff report that you had, or should I do it from here and we can talk from that?
Will probably be faster if you pull it up from inside the room.
Okay.
But I
All right. It's a bit of a large file, so give me 1 moment. Yeah, I want to make sure, just want to make sure what I've got here. Okay. All right, let me share out my screen. 1 moment. Actually, it will be faster. Devin's got it up.
You zoom in on those a little bit. The verticals are kind of breaking up.
Dan, which elevation should we go to? We've got the staff report up on the screen.
I see that. I mean, I think, you know, what's shown is what was submitted with the application materials. You know, again, the front, what you see on the first floor is rendered it appropriately. They are still retaining the stucco exterior, but then what you see above, you know, the notes are that it will have those 1x3 vertical trim pieces. And then number 14 is that horizontal flashing piece, dividing the second story from the gable.
Is that 13 also?
Is 13 a different horizontal dimension, Dan?
13 is a different dimension. Yeah, that's a 1x8 sort of band board above the first floor.
And then what is 14? Is that the piece of flashing or is that?
14 is that horizontal trim. It's called a horizontal bead reveal. That's the name of the piece that was the specification was provided in the original HOP application.
Okay, and then the verticals are sort of battens. Can you go back to that detail? Do we have? I'm just trying to understand what we're looking at here.
So I mean, this is one of those where we have to sort of combine what's in the narrative. So they are battens. I mean, effectively, the construction is the same method that you're having a 1 inch by 3 inch trim piece installed over the joint where the two hardy panels meet. And that was described in the narrative as that's how that's going over. You know, in discussions with the applicant, you know, he emphasized that the horizontal joints that are shown in the representative image were not going to be installed as part of that, and the flashing was going to be retained as part of that. I did a substantial image search to try and find another instance where it wasn't true, board and batten at 12 or 18-inch intervals. And I couldn't find one that was spaced as widely as what you see in the last page of the compiled staff report and application. So that would be page 14. Yeah, so if you look at that image, it is just the vertical members, not the horizontals that are proposed to be installed. And it's just at the second floor and the open gable on the left and right elevations.
Can I ask a question? This is Commissioner Doman and Dan. The figure that we're looking at now, is this, this is just a rendering of what it would look like? Is that how I understand?
No, this is not the proposed house. This is another house that was constructed.
Okay.
I think it's in North Kensington, but he wanted to show what it looks like to have that batten trim piece installed with otherwise hole-sized panels, hardy panels, on an exterior rather than more narrower spaced board and batten siding.
Okay, and in the write-up, you have suggested some other alternative sidings that staff, HVC, would probably find acceptable. I assume this has all been discussed with the applicants. The applicant's not here. So has the applicant been receptive? Do you know if they're going to throw all this out the window and put up siding? Do you know what they're going to do?
Well, I mean, the house is under construction, and sometimes getting a hold of an applicant during the review period is not always the easiest thing for us. So I was not able to run the alternative solution down. The applicant has an approved hop already, and the house is under construction. So they the applicant can build what was approved. Again, he had reservations about the long-term effectiveness of that solution. The James Hardie Company makes a specific caulk that is intended to go between joints so Hardie panels can be installed with basically butt jointed against one another. Again, those were his concerns. They're not staff's concerns. And he came to us with this alternative solution. We think that any clapboarding on the second floor would be appropriate, whether that's wood or fiber cement. In looking at other images, we sort of evaluated whether a 4-inch or up to a 10-inch would be acceptable, and our determination was that any of those would be appropriate, which is why we added the recommended condition to the staff report.
So basically, staff finds the vertical battens not appropriate. The horizontal Z-bend, or whatever it is that acts as a water break on the horizontal plane is okay. And you had mentioned that Hardie Plank or Hardie Company makes a caulk. So, I mean, there's no real reason other than the trepidation on the part of the homeowner. There's no reason he couldn't just go as he planned and put them up vertically, butt joint, and put the caulk in there. Is that correct? He could do that?
So yes, I mean, he has an approved hop to do that, and that horizontal trim piece was actually part of the original hop approval.
Yeah.
So that's been approved. But in the alternative, if he is so concerned about the aesthetics of it, our recommendation was that the HPC go sort of above and beyond responding to just the information that was presented to it about installing these trim pieces or battens, however you want to refer to them. But that's our recommendation, and the HPC can choose to do less than that.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. I appreciate your input to the homeowner. I wish he or she was here, we could find out a little bit more, but we have to work with what we have. Thank you.
This is Commissioner or Chair Burdett. I have a question for staff. We are being asked to make a recommendation based off of the material and its lifespan as it's installed per the original HOP, and to make a variation on it again to prolong its life supposedly based on input from the owner. Do we have any liability in this, that if we go one way or the other, it can come back at us?
Do you mean in terms of like insurance issues or if the product fails? I mean, the answer is no.
Okay,
The HPC has no liability. The Department of Permitting Services reviews building permits and looks at all life safety issues.
Yeah.
The HPC is just charged with reviewing for architectural compatibility.
Okay. All right. I feel better about that. Yeah.
I would note also, Commissioner Doman, the applicant did sign up to testify. He signed up to testify this evening. Both Dan and I had multiple emails with him back and forth, informing him of the meeting location, the time. He's been in front of us before. We know he was aware of this, that it would be discussed this evening. So I can't comment on why he wasn't able to show. I've been going through my emails and I don't have anything. I'd like to say too, if you guys don't mind, I was looking back through the board books and we can talk about this later. The PDF that is posted online matches what is in the staff report and what Dan is showing. And when I open up the viewer in your board books, the lines flicker in a weird way, right? You don't see them. And when I go through I have a viewer in the back end of it that I can see what you guys are seeing, that the lines disappear in the board book viewer, but they are in there in the drawings. Again, the stable PDF that's sort of a more static file, I guess, on the website and that Dan is presenting here does have everything drawn correctly. So I apologize for whatever glitch Board Effect has made in the architectural set that you guys didn't see that, but it was complete. So that's no fault on the applicant, what you guys are seeing in your board book. It's just something weird, and I'm going to run that down with Board Effect. Maybe it's trying to render too many layers at once in the drawings and it's missing something. I can't speak to that, but it's the first time I've ever seen something like that, and I apologize.
Are there any more questions
I got one
for,
more
oh, Commissioner Pelletier?
More questions. Based on the elevation, are all of the panels the same width? Because I can't tell, if they seem a little bit thinner on the front elevation and a little wider on the side elevation. Is that right? Or Dan, you don't know? You don't have to answer that if you don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. I just want to be clear, because some of this is, I guess, because I hadn't seen the lines before, so I'm a little confused. The difference between these elevations and the ones previously shown, which I have to confess, I didn't go back and look at the previous submission, is just the joint. So there's battens on this one, and there was a crock joint on the previous verticals.
Correct.
And I assume this hardy, I don't know what sizes it comes in. 8 foot is standard. These are really tall panels. Are we sure he can get this size panel? I mean, I guess I could Google it and find out, but they seem awfully tall to me to be a standard size, but I could be wrong about that. So that's the difference. We're ruling on the battens versus the cocked joint. Okay. Okay. All right, thanks.
Commissioner Galloway, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Galloway. Okay, so a question for staff. It sounds like, based on what Hardy has said, that this vertical 1-inch by 3-inch trim piece would be purely for aesthetic reasons, The homeowner is now preferring that over what they had presented in the previous hop because they're concerned about this caulk joint separating, and that, it sounds like that's not a functional concern as much as it is an aesthetic concern. That's so far my understanding. Putting my personal opinions aside and trying to go back to the fact that this is a Capitol View Park Historic District and that this is a nominal resource, effectively non-contributing, is specifically, are we as staff suggesting that because these vertical joints are now more pronounced, that is inconsistent with the historic district requirements? You may have said it, I'm looking for reassurance here.
Yes, and also sort of the treatment is effectively a board and batten, which we take as both inconsistent with the character of the district, but also inconsistent with the contemporary design that the applicant was seeking. You know, the other, if the HPC reviewed this purely as a board and batten design, the commission has also found that the 1x3 inch dimension of the hardy trim is too narrow to be an effective replication of a true wood board and batten construction. So that's been the other part, is that the battens typically exceed 1 inch dimensional thickness. So I mean, again, that would be a sort of traditional application of board and batten architecture, which we're not considering this to be. So yes, your take is that we see this as out of character with the district, and that's exactly the basis for staff's recommendation.
Okay, thanks so much.
Any more questions for staff? If not,
I was just noticing that we talk about this all the time in this hearing room. Do you guys see the building across the street? And that treatment there? That's what when we're talking about it, makes it into, in our opinion, more of a multifamily, or more of a commercial applicant. To us as the staff, that's what it is starting to lean more towards in our estimation. Just to illustrate that a little bit further, we tried to find other examples, and it's sort of staring me right in the face here. And we always talk about those buildings across the street, so I just wanted to point that out.
would any of the commissioners like to get a little closer to the window to take a better look at those buildings, especially, I think, the one directly across, but then also the white one beyond the high-rise, I think is also the same.
And there's a bunch of different treatments too. There's metal flashing pieces, there's applied trim pieces. It's just, you know, Commissioner Galway, to your point before, it is a nominal resource. We just really I have not seen this application done in a way that we believe would be compatible with this type of district, even on new construction.
If nobody needs to go look out the window, I'm going to give my opinion. I'll start this discussion, because I think we're all going to have our input on this. But I know this is a nominal resource, but it was one of those late 30 designs, but post-war construction, where it's just a little stucco box. And there's a real minimal modernist quality to that look. And the original design for this addition was, they're doubling the size of this addition, you know, making it twice as tall, but it was still supposed to have that kind of spare, flat, modernist look to it. And the battens are completely different. That's a different look. It's modern. It is complete, even with the ground floor still being the stucco, the fact that it's got this batten box on top of it, I think just completely ruins the original appearance of the house, of what's left of the house. I agree with staff, it is not compatible with the historic district. This kind of look is more common, at least to my familiarity, to things up in the Pacific Northwest, where they would do things like this. And I'm talking back in late 60s, early 70s, you know. But this was a look, and it was a look because it was pretty quick and easy to build. And you could have a wood siding, and you had the joint covered up. Nowadays, it's a lot different, and I think the house at the end of the report is a good example of that. And a lot of the problem I have with this battened board look, not board and batten, but just battened panels, is that they do not relate to the window or door placement. They are just there, and the windows kind of interrupt them as they occur. There's no proportion or balance to any of this. And it just is unlike the original house. And it doesn't fit in with the historic district. So my opinion is they should stick with the caulk and keep it what they had originally told us they were going to do, which was a continuation of this very austere, modernist look of the one-story original house. Would anybody like to go next?
Madam Chair, I'm
Yes.
so sorry to interrupt, but the applicant has arrived,
Okay,
if you would like to take his testimony.
we can do that. Excellent timing. Sir, if you'd like to come up and have a seat. Yeah.
One second, we're not allowed to directly plug in thumb drive, so we can see if he can email me the presentation and we can get that uploaded. Salam, did you send it to me or did you send it to Dan? To me, okay. How many megs was it? How big was the file? I'm just wondering, it hasn't come through. Ah, it's come through right now, okay. One moment, everybody, I'm gonna save this to the drive and we can broadcast this out. So just give me a second. Okay, we are back on track. So we can, Madam Chair, whenever you're ready to recognize the speaker, to give his name, and then we'll start the timer. And Salem, whenever you want us to advance a slide, please let us know and we will.
Thank you for coming. Please turn on your mic, make sure the button light is green. There you go. And just say your name and your relationship to this project. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Salim Badawi. I'm the owner of 10012 Menlo Avenue. My apologies for showing up late. I have 3 inspections tomorrow, so I've been working really hard today, despite the rains. So I was originally approved for using hardy panels and caulk the seams between the panels. And that was based on the idea that we will keep the original stucco walls on the first floor. However, with the construction, sometimes the concept is different from the construction. As we proceeded with the structural drawings, one section of the house turned out that it didn't have footings at all. Okay, and that is in the demolition plan and the plans that I submitted to Dan. So the structural engineer came, we put holes, we dug holes, and the right section of the house, which is like pushed to the back, apparently it was a garage at a certain point, and the previous owner converted it into a living space, so it didn't have footings. So that section ended, we had to demolish it completely and rebuild it from scratch. Then we have the left section of the house, we have a rear addition. So you can imagine with me if I left a portion of the stucco walls in just one section of the house, it would just have looked, I don't know, funny at best. That's one thing. The other thing is that I'm using exterior insulation, 2-inch exterior insulation, and on top of, a rain screen, which is 1x4 rain screen. If we go to a slide, like construction details. So yeah, so as you can see, like 1/3 of the side of the house is new. The other section, maybe if we go back to the previous slide. Next one, maybe. No, in construction as well. Yes, this one. Yeah, so this is the section that we built from scratch. So we have exterior insulation, we have what's it called? A rain gap or, an air gap or rain screen. So that comes, we can see the next picture again, please. No. The construction as well, construction details. Yes, this one. So it comes flush with the stucco wall. So with that being said, it made more sense to just go with one form of siding, which is the hardy panels. I met several siding contractors and told them the plan that we're gonna use hardy panels and caulk the seams in between, and none of them seemed familiar with this form of siding. They said we always use the hardy panels and board and batten with different like gaps between the board and batten. So as you can see, like I'm building this house honestly as if I'm gonna live in this house. I'm planning to sell this house, but I'm trying to build a house that will last for generations and would be appreciated by the new homeowner. All details in the house, especially the energy part of the house. So I didn't wanna like build something and then leave the future homeowner with to face some problems. What I read about the reviews about the caulking and from what I was told by the contractors is that the caulking at a certain point will crack, and you will have to reapply the caulking. And so the solution that I thought about was to cover the joints or the seams between the hardy panels with 1x2 or 1x3 wood stripes or hardy stripes from the same material. And when I knew that this is a change that I will need to do, I emailed Dan. I thought that he would have the authority to approve that, but he said like I would have to come before the commission. I presented him with two designs. One was just regular board and batten that we see on contemporary houses, and the other one was, if we go to precedent houses, I believe it's the third slide, third or fourth slide. Yep, this one. So yeah, presented him with this one and another one, which is regular board and batten with like I think like 12 or 15-inch spacing. So Dan said, I think this one is more appropriate given that the house has a contemporary design. So I took his word, and I thought that this is what I would be approved for. So I moved on with the plan or with the changes. And right now, if we go to the house now, yep. So this is how the house looks now. Of course, it's under construction. The siding is being installed right now. So this is how the house looks now. The left side, we still haven't installed the battens. So anyway, back to the report of Dan. When I read it, like I was honestly shocked, since like his opinion in the report like is completely the opposite of what he initially responded to my email. So I'm open to suggestions at this point, but this is where we are at right now.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? And Rebecca, can you go back one photograph, please? And can you zoom into that a lot closer? I have a question for you. At the very center of that elevation, the horizontal batten over the first floor window drops. Why does it do that?
Well, this rectangular, so you see like there is a rectangular around the three windows, the two windows on the top and the one window at the bottom. This will be a different color, let's say dark gray. So I'm trying to give the house a character as well. I think the house as is looks a bit boring, doesn't have any character. So that's why it's gonna be like a section on its own. Like what we see on contemporary houses these days. Sometimes we see them like as I don't know, a bay section.
Okay, I understand. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Doman?
This is Commissioner Dome. I appreciate your coming forth, because we had a lot of discussion before we even got here. So this changes thing. I didn't know that you were this far along. I thought we were still questioning whether or not these battens would even be put up. But it looks like to me, from the photograph, you already have this done. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly how the house looks now.
Yeah, so it's a little different situation that I thought we had prior to your arrival, okay? And it just seems to me that if these panels are made, I guess this is what James Hardy Company, this is like is it like a fiber board, or what is it?
I think they call them fiber cement.
Fiber cement panels, okay.
Yeah.
And apparently, what you've said, and I don't know, I have never looked into this product myself personally, but there is a caulk that you put between them, right? Is that how the manufacturer recommends it? I mean, there should be an installation brochure that says, when you put these panels up, you put a big bead of caulk down here, you push them together, and that's it, right?
That was the initial plan, yes, and
Yeah.
that's what the manufacturer recommends.
So
Either this or just to cover them with,
and you said you had contacted several contractors and they were not comfortable doing this, right?
No, they would do them, but they were not familiar with this form. They usually install the hardy panels and install board and batten with different spacing.
Yeah,
Or they
but
would use the metal reveal. It's like, I think they call it like an edge
for vertical, for horizontal.
vertical.
There's a metal bead for vertical ones?
Yes.
Oh, I guess I didn't know. I know that you had a diagram in there where it's like a Z for the horizontal ones.
The Z is for the horizontal.
Yeah.
But like for the vertical, there is an edge locking. It looks like an edge where you put,
Okay.
you install it, and
And you didn't want to do that?
They don't want to do that. Well, I mean, at this stage, I would have to remove all these panels.
No, I
Yeah.
understand. We've gone quite a ways down the road. I was trying to think about why you didn't just stay with what the manufacturer recommended, why you went to,
No, I mean, like, all these forms are widely used, like, whether it is caulking, caulking, they haven't seen the caulking. But the metal reveal, that's widely used on modern houses.
Yeah.
And of course, the board and batten. So what I went with is the board and batten, but it's not the common board and batten we see, which like I presented to Dan, one of the designs I sent it to Dan, but Dan said, I think this one is more appropriate, the one I
okay.
I showed.
Is the batten actually a wood batten or is it
It's from the same material.
synthetic?
From the same materials, fiber
hardy.
cement. Yeah, hardy.
Okay, so it's not going to rot out or anything like that?
No,
Okay,
no, no.
Okay,
I
All
mean,
right.
yeah,
Well, it looks
so
like to me you're quite a ways along with this whole thing.
I've been pushing really hard, giving that, like, the permit took 6 months, so that I was bleeding money for a long time, so I had to push really hard.
Okay, well, I don't have any more questions.
Commissioner Pelletier?
Your elevation that you sent us doesn't match your photo at all. And I'm just curious, kind of what happened.
So I added, of course, yeah, I added,
But the distance between your second floor windows and your first floor windows is way taller in real life than it is here. You've got some horizontals.
this is wrong. This is actually wrong, and like the top windows, the windows on second floor were supposed to be pushed up higher. So this is not, yeah.
Well, if you go back to the photo, I'm looking on my iPad at this elevation. So, but there's just a lot of differences between how you ended up laying it out. Because like your 9-inch band board or your 1x8 or whatever that is in your elevation in your drawing doesn't even show up on here. You just kind of abandoned that concept, I guess, when you got rid of the stucco on the first floor, so that you don't have that strong horizontal going around. It kind of jogs up and down. I mean, I appreciate that you want some personality in this, but I think it really just looks like a mistake, that one that slightly goes down, but that's not a question.
But I think once it gets a darker color, you wouldn't be able to see that. Yeah.
We're a bunch of architects, and we would all see, that's the first thing we would see on it, I can tell you. Question for you, on the side addition, are you gonna have more verticals coming down? Or
Yes,
is
yeah,
that?
we stopped, so.
Okay, so you're
once
not
it-
done with
yeah,
that, okay.
Yeah. Once I saw the email, I had to stop everything.
Okay,
I'm sorry, the report, Dan's report.
okay, yeah, there's just a lot of differences between what in the drawing
So
versus
these
what you.
the verticals on the top half of the windows are supposed to go all the way down.
Right, but in your drawing, you've got one panel going from the top all the way down to an 8-inch board that's running around the whole house, sort of tying the bottom and the top together. This is just a very different design than what you showed us.
The difference is we started the paneling from the middle of the windows, so that we can.
Well, that's
have-
one difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have any more questions.
Commissioner Galway?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Gall. I have two questions. One, the 1x3 vertical cap, I guess, is that snap-on, or does that somehow get it?
You glued and nailed in.
And then does it get caulked on both sides?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we glue the back side of it and we caulk, the two sides.
So now you have two caulk joints that could fail. Anyway, okay, so enough said on that. It also looks like, to follow up with Commissioner Pelletier's comment, it looks like the width of the right-hand side is actually wider than what was shown in the drawings. Is that accurate?
The width of the right
You've
side of
got,
the
where
house?
you've got 4 windows in there, I can't
I
imagine.
added, no, there were 3 on the plan, but I added that window, because like.
That's fine, but the
I
dimension.
I love natural light, and when I added these 3 windows and they are separated apart, it doesn't give you a full picture of what is outside.
But you added that 4th window without changing the dimension of the overall house? Or did you increase the width of that section?
No, I had to travel to New Jersey to find to buy this window actually, because it's a long story. But no, the windows are exactly same size. I only added one in between, so.
Without changing the width of the house?
No.
Okay,
They're the
thank you.
same.
Any other questions? Do you know? Okay.
I know it's a tricky situation, but I hope the commission would be understanding. I did my best, like I won't, like I reached out to Dan and I acted based on Dan's opinion. Yeah.
Well, anyhow, so I just want to clarify, the overall width of the house is still 42.8? Okay, because I agree, it doesn't,
No,
that
it's
side
42.8.
doesn't look the same width, even with narrower windows, it looks wider than it ought to be. And the door into that area also doesn't look right.
No, it's
Chair-
exactly 42.8.
Chair Burdett,
Yes.
members of the commission, just from a procedural standpoint,
Yeah.
when Dan went out and conducted his site visit, the stucco was, there are a number of changes here from what was presented. You are here tonight, and what was requested in the narrative was a change to the siding. What has in fact happened is alterations to the fenestration, additional alterations to the design of the siding, and the removal of the stucco from the first floor, none of which were included in your initial HOP approval, nor were they included in the application you have tonight, nor are they actually on the drawings that you received for review and that the staff received for review. So from a procedural standpoint, you don't have a complete HOP to act upon this evening, and there may be other alterations around the other elevations that we are not aware of to describe to you or to bring to your attention and that have not been evaluated.
So what
I mean,
is?
as for the stucco, for what I sent it to Dan, in this application, the panels go all the way to cover the first floor as well. Dan assumed that I'm not doing that, but this is what I'm doing.
It was not included in your narrative, nor were the fenestration changes. These changes to the windows were also not included in your
Change to the
narrative.
window?
You're showing 4 windows here, and your approved drawings and the drawings you submitted had 3. And as Commissioner Pelletier noted, there were some other.
I'm not sure if that makes a big difference.
Yes, it does.
Like it's the exact same size window. It only yeah. I mean,
Okay, so what do we need to do?
You need to have a complete HOP application
A new one?
in front of you in order to fairly make a decision on all of these changes. You may be fine with the window changes. We may be fine with the window changes. We don't have drawings that actually demonstrate that. There are some changes to the siding. As Commissioner Pelletier noted, the band board has been removed or changed slightly. So the requirement for all the applications is that you have all of the complete materials so that you can fairly evaluate the applicant's proposal.
So we should defer this case for a later hearing when all the information can be put together.
I would recommend a deferral with perhaps some direction to the applicant about the information that you would like to see.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to defer this case. We need updated drawings, we need updated photographs, and dimensions.
updated photographs of what?
Where you are today.
That's exactly where I
Or,
am today.
and where you will be when you come to us again. We want to know, we want to be able to compare what was approved and what you want to do now. And we need to be able to see it. The other thing is, in addition to the battens and the windows and dimensions, you also have mentioned color, putting color on this, which I don't believe was also part of the original.
My understanding is color is not part of, is not, like you guys, don't judge the colors. That's my understanding.
No.
Paint a part of our purview?
Paint, the color is not, for this historic district, color is not something that is regulated by the commission.
Is the addition of color, whatever the color may be, part of it as far as the overall appearance of the facade?
No, not in the Capitol View Park Historic District.
You don't need to worry about color then. Yeah, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to come, Commissioner Doman?
Yeah, I'm not sure what phase we're in, this or considerations or my thoughts or whatever, but I more or less agree with the direction from staff that we postpone this, but I think we need to give you direction, and I would support the battens. I mean, you've come a long ways, okay? I understand your rationale behind it. I don't think it behooves us to require you to take those battens off, okay? So I don't know, I'm just speaking for myself. I don't know what
Yeah.
other commissioners would feel.
Commissioner Doman, we will be deferring this case, so you'll get to hear it again when they provide additional information.
Well, I thought one of our objectives is at least give a little bit of direction to the applicant before they come back again. And in my opinion, I would support the battens. The rest of it, the drawings and everything else in the windows is up for consideration, and that'll be addressed in it. But that's the only direction I would like to see that I would offer. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Haynes?
I'm going to make a motion that the HBC defer case hop number 1091229 revised at 10012 Menlo Avenue, Silver Spring, and that the applicant provide revised drawings showing the built home, windows, doors, any changes to the facade, any proposed detailing that he wishes to do, it shown on the drawings. We also need updated photographs of all four sides of the house to be submitted.
Okay, my question is, would be considered as like a retrospective?
Essentially, this is going to be reviewed as a retroactive.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, like here I am in the middle of construction. I acted based on the opinion that I received. So
unfortunately, you were coming back for a hop to do this work, and you should not have done the work until you had the approved hop. That's part of the problem here. Do I have a second for the motion?
well, I would have to say something here.
Hold on. We want to finish this motion. Do I have a second for the motion? No?
I second the motion to defer it, to have, as Commissioner Haynes' motion is to have additional information, complete information.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Abstain.
One abstain?
I'll abstain.
We have two abstentions,
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Julie,
Got it.
or
Thank you.
Commissioner Pelletier, and the rest are ayes. 5 ayes, 2 abstentions. Okay.
Okay. The fact that the original house, had no historic significance. So my understanding is that, and I think that's in the guidelines, that should give me some leniency. That's one thing. The other thing is that, like, second, I'm using the same material that I was approved for, which is the hardy panels. I haven't used like a completely different material. The third is I reached out to the historic office. I didn't do things on my own. Actually, then like replied to me like days after my email. And then his report is completely opposite of what he said. So like I hope that you can see that like I try to do the right thing, and I always try to do the right thing.
And we do appreciate that. It's just that, because we just want to approve hops, and we discussed some of these that we feel should, they have components to them or issues with them that should be discussed publicly so that we can all agree with what should happen. And in this case, yes, your project would get leniency when you originally came in for the first review, which was a
I don't think I
preliminary.
got leniency. I mean, like, it took 5 months to get the permit, and like the house was treated as if it had historic significance.
Well, it's in a historic district, and
It
that's.
is, but it is not historic. The house
I know
itself
it's
is not
not,
historic.
I mean, I understand where what you're thinking, but even in a historic district, any property has to be reviewed for any exterior work.
I understand.
And especially when you're taking an existing house and adding so much to it, it changes the character of the historic district. And Capitol View's been getting a lot of these projects lately. A lot of the properties have been coming through, and we have had to deal with quite a few properties. And you did get approval on your preliminary and the original HOP. It's just what has come forward now is so different than what we originally approved that we need to kind of stand back, get all the information together so we can look at everything again. And that is what we do, and it's inconvenient for you. We do appreciate that, and we hope that you can turn around and pull this information together very quickly so that you can get scheduled for another HOP. And again, meanwhile, you can continue the work inside the house. But it would be wise for you to kind of not do anything on the exterior, because the more you do, the more we have to see. But you can talk to staff about this, about what to do next, what's going to happen between now and when you come back for this deferred HOP.
Okay, so the recommendation is that I pause any exterior.
I would recommend you talk to staff about this at this point, and about coming back and what you need to have and what needs to occur.
Well, I mean, the contractor is coming back tomorrow, and like I told him, like I will tell you, like I have the hearing tonight, and we will know tomorrow what we should do.
This is Commissioner Galway. I don't know as a board that we could say you should or shouldn't stop, but what you're hearing is a recommendation that if you were to proceed and you were to continue to build and do things outside, the HOP is not a rubber stamp. We will evaluate, make sure that what you're building is what you're showing us so that we have a fair shot at taking a look at it. You've heard one commissioner that I think could be fall on your side. We don't know where the rest of us will rule, and you're at risk if you were to proceed and we don't rule in your favor that you might have to undo something. So I think that's where you are, and you have to make that decision, and I would make the same recommendation. Get your photos, get your drawings up to date to reflect what you're building, get it back in front of the staff as quickly as you can, and hopefully minimize that time. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Moving on, we'll move to our preliminary 2A at 2500 Holman Avenue, Silver Spring. Oh, is there a staff report? Sorry.
Yes, this is Laura with the staff. Bear with me one moment while I pull it up. This is a third preliminary consultation review for construction of 2 new houses at 2500 Holman Avenue, to be known as 2504 and 2506 Holman Avenue. The project involves new construction of 2 houses within the Forest Glen Historic District in the environmental setting of the circa 1891 outstanding resource at 2500 Holman Avenue. The project is subject to review under the Forest Glen Historic District Amendment, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior standards. As discussed in the previous reviews and staff reports, the property at 2500 Holman Avenue until recently included 4 lots platted in 1887, lots 7, 8, 9, and 12, 3 of which were never previously developed and all of which were under common ownership from at least 1944 through 2024. The historic house is located on platted Lot 9, and the owner of that house also has retained ownership of Lot 12. The proposed houses are on lots 7 and 8. Refamiliarize you. Historic house and the proposed construction would be located adjacent to it. So at your January 8th, 2025 meeting, the HPC held a preliminary consultation review for the project. Massing reviewed at that first preliminary consultation included houses set back approximately 90 feet from the public right-of-way and each measuring 33 feet in width by 45 feet in depth with 20-foot by 20-foot garages attached by hyphens and accessed by a shared driveway. The emphasis of that first review was on determining whether infill construction was appropriate on the lots and establishing a general location for the proposed houses and driveways. The HBC conceptually supported the construction of 2 new houses and offered comments about massing, that the massing, forms, and roof lines should be broken down and sensitive to the historic house, not appear as massive boxes, that the buildings did not need to be pushed further to the rear, but also should not be in the same plane as the historic house and did not necessarily need to align with one another, that the scale of the buildings should be reduced if they were to be brought forward on the lots, that the design and placement of the proposed buildings should relate not only to the adjacent historic property and properties in the district, but should address the streetscape as a whole, and that the proposed shared driveway and rear garages were acceptable as shown. At the March 26th, 2025 meeting, the HPC held a second preliminary consultation review for the project. For that submission, the applicant revised the application, pulling the proposed buildings closer to the street, refining the proposed design, and providing renderings showing the topography as requested by the HPC. During that review, the majority of commissioners offering comments agreed that the general square footage proposed could be acceptable if the buildings were narrowed and elongated. Commissioners suggested rotating room orientation to help achieve this goal. At 35 feet in width, the proposed buildings were too wide and out of scale with the adjacent historic resource and rhythm of houses in the district. At a distance of 14 feet between the proposed house on Lot 8 at 2504 Holman and the historic house at 2500 Holman was insufficient. That the roof height should be lowered and the amount of visible roof reduced to the extent possible, and that the general facade design was acceptable. However, that the side elevations appeared overly boxy. You agreed that the design did not need to be based on the infill construction from the early 2000s along Hollow Glen. That the proposed houses should appear secondary to the historic building, but did not as presented, and that the design and placement of the proposed building should take into consideration the whole streetscape, including the lower scale 20th century construction to the west. Following the second preliminary consultation review, the applicants further revised the design and added information requested by the HPC at the second preliminary. For this third preliminary review, applicants have revised to show a building width of 31 feet for the first 42 feet, widening to 35 feet for the remaining length of the houses, which have been lengthened from 64 feet to 67 feet 10 inches. Revised the distance between the historic house and proposed house on Lot 8 to 15 feet, an increase of 1 foot. Lowered the ridge line by approximately 10 inches from 33 feet to 32 feet 2 inches from the first floor level to the ridge. The proposed height from grade is now 36 feet 8 and 3/8 inches. Revised the proposed facade design to incorporate double front gables and wall dormers and eliminated the impedimented porch elements and added additional changes in plane and materials to the side elevations. Rotated the room orientation, but otherwise has a very similar overall building square footage, and added zoning information and confirmed they're within the infill lot coverage requirements. Staff finds that although the applicants have made some revisions to the design since the second preliminary consultation review, at approximately 4,500 square feet above grade, the proposed houses are more than double the size of the adjacent historic building. Staff finds that the overall height, massing, and design of the proposed construction does not read as secondary or deferential to the adjacent historic building and remains out of scale in massing and rhythm with the adjacent construction and the district as a whole, failing to satisfy Standard 9 and the Secretary of the Interior's guideline for new construction, new exterior additions and related new construction, and Chapter 24A8B2. At the first and second preliminary consultation reviews, staff recommended that the proposed buildings be no wider than the existing historic house, or 30 feet. Staff maintains this position, finding that this width is consistent with both the historic house and other new construction in the district on Hollow Glen Place. For that earlier infill case in the district from 1999, the applicant originally proposed at a front width of 32 feet for the new buildings, but at the HPC's urging, reduced to 24 feet for the front halves of the buildings and bumped out to 32 at the rear, creating greater visual distance between the buildings from the public right-of-way. During that review, the commission had also found that the footprint, which was proposed there for 1,760 square feet, was overly large, and ultimately it appears the footprint of the approved houses was around 1,350, excluding the garages. At 2,013 square feet, the footprint of the proposed buildings is nearly 1.5 times that and includes integral garages. Staff maintains that a minimum of 20 feet should be provided between the historic house at 2500 Holman Avenue and the proposed construction on Lot 8. Based on the lot width and side setback requirements, this may require narrowing the fronts of the houses further or setting the houses back farther on the lots. While the fronts of the buildings have been narrowed by 4 feet at the front since the second preliminary consultation review, they've only been reduced by 1 foot in width since the first preliminary consultation review, from 32 to 31 feet, and remain 35 feet at the rear. The distance between the historic house and new construction on Lot 8 has only increased by 1 foot, as previously mentioned, and the distance between the two new houses is greater than that, with the new house on Lot 8 and than that of the new house on Lot 8 and the historic house. Staff finds that the proposed height continues to compete with and remains out of scale with the adjacent historic building, and that a reduction of approximately 10 inches in height from average grade does not constitute a significant or sufficient change between the second and third preliminary consultation reviews. Staff notes that much of the height appears driven by the placement of the occupiable space of the third floor or attic space in the side gable portion of the building and the use of an elevated first floor level. Staff recommends that the applicants lower the main side gable ridge height, reorient the occupiable attic space to the rear, increasing the height of the rear cross gable and adding dormers to the rear L, and lowering the first floor level to grade. Staff finds that the facade design, which has been revised to show nested front gables with corner returns, bears little relationship to the historic context, is overly ornate, and competes with the historic building, while the removal of the pedimented porch entries that related to the historic porch removes an element that provided a sense of rhythm and continuity to the design. Staff also finds that the use of jerkin head roof lines and multi-pane over one windows should be simplified to reduce the conspicuousness of the proposed buildings. And we have the elevations and plans in here as well. For the proposed construction, the applicants proposed hardy plank lap siding, hardy shingle faux shake siding, 2-inch thick cut stone water tables or bases, Anderson 100 series Fibrex windows, Certainty landmark shingle and Englert standing seam metal roofing. Staff supports the use of hardy plank siding as a substitute material on new construction and additions within historic districts such as Forest Glen, where frame construction is the primary building type. But in staff's experience, the proposed hardy shingle siding reads as overly flat and incompatible for use on historic buildings and in historic districts. Staff notes that the historic buildings in the district have brick rather than stone foundations and recommends that the stone foundation cladding on the proposed buildings be replaced with brick and lowered to the greatest extent possible. Staff also recommends that the proposed standing seam metal roofing be replaced with asphalt shingles to simplify the design and reduce the conspicuousness of the construction. Staff also finds that the proposed Anderson 100 series windows are overly flat and incompatible with the historic resource and context. Staff recommends the applicant consider a different window line, such as Anderson 200 series windows, which have a more traditional sash to glazing profile. The applicant has provided a tree survey and site plan, as previously requested, that identifies trees for retention and removal on both the project lots themselves as well as adjacent parcels at 2500 and 2508 Holman, which are not owned by the applicant. The tree survey shows that all the trees in the front yards of Lot 7 and 8, as well as within the project footprint, are proposed for removal. The survey also identifies 3 trees at the far rears of the lots to remain. Staff recommends that the applicants reevaluate the trees identified as in moderate condition in the front yards of the proposed buildings and that efforts be made to retain mature trees of moderate condition. The survey also identifies trees for retention and removal on the adjacent parcels. 3 of these trees are up here at this corner, are proposed for removal, presumably in conjunction with the sidewalk extension and streetscape improvements the applicant hopes to undertake. Staff notes that the applicant cannot apply for work to adjacent parcels without owner consent and recommends that the sidewalk and adjacent property tree removal be removed from this application and that they return with a future hop jointly with the adjacent property owners. Finally, staff continues to conceptually support construction of new construction on lots 7 and 8, but does not support the current proposal, finding that it does not prioritize the prominence of the adjacent outstanding resource. Staff does not find the design is appropriately scaled, detailed, or located far enough away from the historic building to maintain its character and that of the site and setting, as recommended in the amendment and the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines, and as outlined in the staff report and discussion. So staff recommends the applicant make revisions based on the HPC's comments today and return for a 4th preliminary consultation to further discuss massing, height, rhythm, and spacing of the buildings, and to have a discussion on the proposed materials, grading, and tree removals, in addition to any other items recommended by the commission. We have a list of materials we recommend for a future submission, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? No questions? Then would the applicant like to make a presentation? And what, 7 minutes?
Thank you so much. Good to see you, Commissioners and Madam Chair. We missed you at the last meeting, but I'm sure we'll be able to catch you up. Just want to thank everyone for this process. You can move to the next slide. It's been a long process for us, starting from April 2024. Here we are a year later. I was happy to see the enthusiasm from all of you last session. Madam Chair, you weren't here, but we had about 4 neighbors come out and stay till 11 p.m. And it really was a testament. You don't usually get people saying, I want development in my backyard, and so that was good. And we also have a neighbor here as well that's going to be supporting the project. But it's been a process. I've got to learn a little bit about how this works and understanding that each commissioner has different ideas and different expertise, and I've tried to integrate all that while managing the expectations of the staff. It hasn't been easy, but here we are. Next slide, please. Of course, this is where we started, but this is certainly not where we ended. Next slide. This was our iteration last session. I'll go over a little bit more detail about what we've done to refine the design, but just as a refresher, this is what was presented last time. Next slide. And this is where we are now. We've worked really hard. This has basically been a complete redesign in terms of what we had to do with the shape and style of the home. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail, and I think you'll be able to see what we've done. But basically, the big changes that we've done, and I'll go over in more detail, is we've narrowed the house about 4 feet. We've gotten rid of the roof line. If you go to the next, the amount of roof you'd see, that's the previous iteration. Next slide. And that's the next one. And if you go to the next slide, they're back to back. So you can get a better sense of what it looks like. But if you see the spring line was in fact lowered. The visible roof, I believe that was coming from Vice Chair Haynes. You had mentioned that you would like to see less roof last time. So we lowered, the spring line was brought down. There was a wall dormer that was added to reduce the amount of visible roof. I think you see a design that's a little bit more refined. I think the massing was reduced. The way that the homes speak to the surrounding structures, they're pointed, they're flanking more inward, so the smaller portions are facing the historic resource. I think Commissioner Pelletier, you had mentioned the smaller home on the right. I think this orientation is less bulkier as it appears towards the smaller home. So that was something that we also did. We also reduced the height to the extent that we could. We increased the distance from the historic resource to the extent we could. You know, the more civil engineering you do, you realize you need to have certain requirements in the basement. And so as you refine the design, there were some challenges that we had, but we tried to do the best that we could do. Next slide, please. This is the original design. The feedback that we got was that it was too wide, that we would like to see a different orientation to some of the rooms. Next slide. And this is what we did. I think Commissioner Dominiani, you had mentioned that the rooms should be changed and reversed the room dimensions. That's exactly what we did here. Commissioner Pelletier, you had mentioned that you wanted design to be less boxy. So before we had a straight line going down, the previous design had 7 corners. This new design has 10 corners. And that is, we really took the time. Certain things you have to figure out. Where are you going to put the HVAC units? There's building lines. There's a rear garage. There's a rear patio. You start to run out of places where you can place things. You have egress windows in the basement. There are a lot of things going on here. So we had to fit everything in a design and also something that we could build. Next slide, please. Just more back-to-back differences so you can see the amount of work that we put into this design. Definitely more dynamic, reduced the width, and did the rotations as requested. Next slide. This is a side profile that shows you the amount of effort we put into making the side of the home less boxy per the commissioner's request, breaking up the massing, putting different kinds of materials to break up the side. One of the feedbacks we got from one of the commissioners was it was okay if the home went further back, so we took that in stride and made the changes. As far as the staff's report on materials, we're totally okay with doing a brick foundation. Also, we've been looking at even a better window line that Marvin offers. We're actually flying over to Boston to get a tour of their factory. They have a wonderful line that actually does historic windows. So we will be presenting a Marvin line for the windows. Next slide. Also, we took time on the back of the house. You never know when you'll be able to see the back of a home, especially in the wintertime when you're walking through the neighborhood. Really wanted it to be attractive and break up the design a little bit and make it as attractive as the front. Next slide. So this is just what we've been working hard with the staff on materials and coordinating, and there was a lot of effort to get to this point. We have invested quite a bit of money at this point. I just wanted to share that with you, and we do have even more community support. Word got out from the last meeting, and there was some coverage on local blogs and news, and people were super excited to see finally. The site still remains problematic. There's still, trash and non-conforming structures on the property, and that has been the case for decades, unfortunately. Next slide. But we still have challenges. I don't have to go through all of them. You know, you're aware of all of them, and every single one of these are real. And it's a very scary time to be a builder. The amount of returns we're getting are not what you would think. And like I said before, this is not Bethesda, this is not Chevy Chase, this is Forest Glen. This is a pioneer project. I'm doing it because I live in the neighborhood and I care about the neighborhood. So next slide, if you could just give me 30 seconds. Our request is I tried to get my kids to hop last night. They didn't want to hear it, so I ended up using an AI image. But what we would like to do is, as quickly as possible, it's been a year now, we'd like to move to the next step. We've worked really hard. We've taken every single one of your feedback. It's not an easy process. It's like a jury. You try to figure out who you can appeal to. But we really have taken every one of your responses and put a high-quality work product, and we hope we can move to the next phase of development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Haynes?
Only one. In looking at the information in our packet, the height, you're saying from the average grade is 36.8, but the maximum is 35 feet by zoning code. So you're 1 foot 8 inches taller than, and this is based on your engineer's calculations and stated dimensions. I was just wondering what gives there, what's the reason for that? And can you even get it approved by DPS?
Sure, no, absolutely. So our architects are Claude Lap architects, and I think the way they calculate it is the middle ridge of the roof. I don't know exactly the calculation, but when we went through all the calculations, whether it was the zoning calculations that you had requested, as well as the height, everything did pan out, and there were no issues with any of the dimensions for the home. And I believe staff also did not object to anything in terms of for code.
We did not. We didn't do a code review. We
Okay.
just looked at,
Sure.
you submitted the information
Okay.
that the commissioners, but we're not qualified to say whether or not you meet
Sure, so the
zoning.
architects that we use are very familiar with this process, and they obviously have come before you many times. So
Yep.
we feel confident that we can build this house and get a permit.
I'd have them relook at that, because just using the information that you gave me, you're 1 foot 8 inches over the maximum's 35 feet from the average grade at the front, and clearly stated on this slide, you're 36.
I don't think that's the middle of the roof part.
That's to the ridge. It's 35 feet to the ridge.
Well, I can verify that.
But anyways, just check that.
Sure, absolutely. No, I
I mean,
appreciate that.
it might be a way for you to just take the house and just go down 1 foot 8 inches and have less steps up to the front door. So take a look at that.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but I made a mistake, but do you have anything to say, sir?
Yeah,
He's signed up to testify separately as an adjacent owner interested
Okay.
party.
So if the commissioners, if there are any more questions for the applicant, no, then, sir, you could say your piece. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, my name is Sterling Mehring. I'm a neighbor. I live in adjoining property, adjoining to the historic resource. My two lots 10 and 11, back up to the lots 9 and 12 of the historic house. I wanted to testify in support of this application. We've been very concerned about the development of this property behind our property for the 40-some years we've lived there. My wife and I moved in to the house on 2505 Forest Glen Road in 1977, and I only add this because it adds a little bit of weight to my support for this application. We bought the house from Anna and Joel Wise. Anna Wise was born in this house that, the historic resource on Holman. Joel Wise was born in the house next door on 2500 Forest Glen Road, where Phil Coyne and Sandy Queter live now. And they wrote a letter in support of this application. But those two married and built our house in 1933, and then we bought it in 1977, and we raised our family there. And we're very active in the community. I've built 3 homes in the neighborhood. One home backs up to this property, and I renovated the other house that backs up to this property where the applicant is making a request. So we're very interested in seeing the neighborhood develop well, and we think this would be a real improvement. I've been personally involved with other people who are interested in purchasing this property in the past. Wormold Builders from Frederick was interested in it, as well as some others. We believe that this, I and my neighbors believe that this application is most favorable for our neighborhood and for the district at large. And we wanted to support it. Followed this process really carefully, came to the first consultation meeting, and I believe the applicant has responded really well to the comments of the commissioners, particularly about the development of these 2 lots. And I hope, and the reason we favor it is for a couple reasons. One is the architectural interest. This is so much better of a job of supporting a historic resource than the redevelopment of the Everett House, catty corner to it, where they built sort of unimaginative kind of boxy homes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any, Commissioner Doman?
Thank you for your testimony. I'm looking at, I guess it's page 118 of the staff report, which shows the property. You said, do you live, I'm trying to think what street that is. Do you live right behind the 2500, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
And then, so you are actually in the historic district, if I look at this correctly.
No, the district goes around my house.
Which house is yours in this drawing?
Yeah, directly under the star where the little white arrow is right now.
Oh, so you are not in the historic district
No,
then?
they drew the line around me.
Oh, okay. So, but the house to your east, I guess, of you, that one is in the historic district?
Yeah, that's Sandy and Phil Queter, and they wrote a letter in support of this
Okay.
application.
And this is a very small district, isn't it?
It is, but it's
It's
significant.
it's the red
around the
line that I'm
church
looking
there.
at. That's basically it, isn't it?
Yes.
Very small district, okay.
Yes.
I drove by the property this morning. Oh, is this question?
Oh.
Okay. I was going to make a comment, but it's not appropriate just yet. But anyway, I'll wait.
Are there any other questions? No? If not, then we will start our comments, Commissioner Doman.
Okay. I'm back here. I was just going to say, I drove, actually, this is the second time I drove by the property. Once was in the winter, and the trees were bare, and you could see a lot of the property. You can see the trash that's way in the back. Today, it's all green, and it looks like a veritable jungle out there. I mean, anything you do will improve that property, okay? And as far as the architectural features of the property and everything, you're right on the edge. The houses to your west are small houses, and they have no relevance to historic of interest. Across the street, you have, is that like apartments across the street from you then?
Yes.
That has no interest from a historic standpoint. So as much as sometimes we belabor, and force you to make revisions to your drawings and everything, well, all of them were a big improvement over what's there, okay? So as you moved along, you've gotten better, I admit that. I think you've got a wonderful design. I support this project. And, oh, there's a car parked on the, is that part of your property that the car is on?
Yes, yes.
Because it looks like they're driving across your property going to the back of the big house at 2500.
That's correct.
Okay. Anyway, but that'll be gone when things get moved along.
Hopefully, hopefully.
Yeah, okay, okay.
There's a lot of challenges on the site like
There
this.
is a lot of challenge. You have a lot of trees on that property, and a lot of vegetation on that property, so it'll be a major undertaking. But I think you're on the right track, and I support this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Commissioner Pelletier?
Hello. I appreciate your efforts in responding to our comments. I think you have, I think the side elevations look tons better. I appreciate you slimming down the buildings. I understand we're really pushing you to kind of reshape these to get the size. I think the sizing is way better than it was last time. Not crazy about those broken pediments, but that's purely a style thing. But I do think that the side elevations are much more interesting. I mean, if we really wanted to get these down to 30 feet, you could take a little bit of space out of the foyer. It's kind of wide if we wanted to make them a little bit skinnier, but I don't really feel it's necessary. I think you've done your due diligence with us, and I can support what you have here.
Thank you.
Commissioner Galway?
This is Commissioner Galway. I think you've made significant improvement, and you've certainly taken the comments of the commission to heart, and I do appreciate that. A couple things that are still a little difficult. I think one is the distance between the historic property and the house. That is just, I think the one thing, the massing has come down to a point where if you look at the images of the second prelim and compare it to the third prelim, you've done quite a marvelous job of really, I mean, it's very obvious. You look at the second preliminary and your houses overshadow mass-wise. Now that we don't have that case, I don't know what your intention is in the attic, but, if you could lower that ridge line a foot or so, and I don't think there's much room, especially with you going to 35 feet between the two houses with that driveway. I mean, I see where your struggle is. There's just not much room there to slide that house over a little bit, and your other house is right on,
I could push it back, but you.
Yeah, I thought about that.
I think it looks so nice with the street.
So I think look at the height. Certainly the code issue that was brought up, make sure you're good there. That might force you to lower it to a point where the massing is a done deal in my mind. I just don't know that you have any room to do much between the historic house and your first house there on the left. I'd say look at that. But in general, just staff is requesting feedback. I think the appropriateness of the location set back a little bit, but at the same line, the two new houses, I think that's appropriate. I really think you're close in the scale and the height and the massing. The building design, I'm not going to nitpick it. I think that, they're elegant, but they're not overpowering the historic structure, so I'm okay with that. I think you've done a nice job so far with the building materials. The tree removal, you don't go removing somebody else's trees, so I think you have to look into that and get the appropriate approval to do that. And I guess that's really the comments that I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Damiani?
Hi, this is Commissioner Dominiani. I tend to agree with many of the comments so far. I think you've made sufficient effort to narrow the houses, adjust the massing. I think it's particularly successful having the lower corner facing 2500. I think that worked very well, sort of moving the sort of taller part of that front facade of the house over to where the driveway is. I do agree, I think, with staff comments about simplifying some of the roofing materials. That might help a bit on the center home there. I'd also like to make a remark about the removal of trees as I understand them. At one point, you had showed a color rendering of what the homes could look like, where they were like blue and green with a bunch of trees. And in that image, it showed how the properties would look with many trees still in the front yards there, including a couple of big tall ones. And so to the extent that you can retain in the front yards there a couple of the big tall trees, supposing that they're healthy, or at least moderate or better, I think it would go a long way too towards keeping that kind of foresty effect, which I think is a real classic feature of the neighborhood and of the property as it is. Other than that, I think you've made great progress, and yeah, I could see myself supporting such a project. Thanks.
Commissioner Haynes?
Yeah, I think that you've certainly took our comments to heart and addressed them as best you can. I think what, for me, in this kind of development type of home, there's a formula. There's a formula of spaces. There's a formula of massing. And what I think as a commission we were trying to do is push you to do something a little more customized. I know you feel you've customized this, but it's really a very standard house, development house that we see all over. And you've pushed the massing around and you've lowered it, and I appreciate that. But I do think we've hit a crossroads where, given the site constraints, I understand the need to hit certain price points that, unless you're willing to really customize it, this is the best we can do. I kind of feel, short of pull this, whether the height comes down a foot or so is irrelevant. So I do think they're nice. They're relatively proportioned. The front facades are reasonably pleasing. The length of the house is what it is, and you've done certainly improve side elevations and trying to break down that messing with fenestration, with bays, et cetera, and I think that's fine. So overall, I guess I'm in support of it. I think overall the location is fine. I wouldn't mind if you could push back slightly farther, maybe 5-6 feet, but I think the massing is probably as good as we're going to be able to get you to do it. The materials, I think, are fine. And so overall, I think it's much improved, and overall, I think I can support it.
Commissioner Radu?
This is Commissioner Rado. I support it too, and but I do think a couple of feet back. I mean, I understand nothing can be, not nothing, but you've done a little bit of reducing, and it's like much closer to what we wanted to be. I still think if they would be a little bit pushed back, you'll perceive them a little less bulky compared with the historic house, and also if you can keep as many of the front trees. But I'm supportive of the project.
I think I'm the last then. Well, it's interesting having missed the last round because I'm kind of leaping, I missed the in-between. These are much improved. You've done a lot of good work with this. I would like to see if you could push these down further still a little bit. 8 inches a foot, and then also I agree pushing them back a bit. One of the things that just struck me is one of the things you see in these developments like Kentlands and all, everything's lined up on a line. You could strike a line just from one porch to the other. And what if 2504 was pushed back a little bit further and 2506 wasn't? And, oh, you've been suggesting that, okay, well, if they weren't aligned that much, and it wouldn't, 2 feet, just enough so that the corners aren't aligning with each other, would that give the perception that that middle house is, the house that's in the middle of the existing and the one to the far right, would that make a little bit of a difference? And I would like to see the roof come down a bit, one way or the other, if you might have to do it, or if you can do it. And then another trick you could try, and this is kind of going to the trees, is plant a nice tree in front of the corner of the porch of the middle house, so that when that tree grows tall enough, you won't see the corner of the house. You'll see, because there's going to be a tree and leaves and everything there. You'll see the steps going up, and you'll see the bays coming out, and the house will look narrower from the street than it is in real life. And you can kind of, separate the historic house from this other house through a little bit of sleight of trees. But other than that, I think you've done a good job of listening to us. Timing tonight has a lot. You got the luck of the draw of being the last, so you're getting a more positive reception. But no, I think you've done a good job. I do agree, I don't like the broken pediment on especially.
At least not on both.
Not on both, yeah. Pick one, maybe the middle one doesn't have it, and that way the one to the far right does. Just, mix it up a little bit. And I agree with the roof shingles, the asphalt shingles. I think you need to look at that. But a few more tweaks, and I think you're there. So I think if you listen to us and do what we say, you can come back with a hop.
Oh, I like to hear that. Okay. Well, I will try my best for sure. And I think all the things you've said are doable. There's not a whole lot there. I think, we're trying to have multi-generational homes are where we're at now with, kids staying longer than they probably should, and, parents and all that, all of the above. So that third floor loft is something that we're trying to sneak in. We did reduce the height by a foot, but we can do our best, and we'll change things around a little bit to make it a little bit more simpler. But I appreciate your feedback. There's nothing that you said today that I think we can't. The only direction I'd like to have is, there was so much back and forth in terms of where the home should be placed in relation to the historic resource. And so we've kind of gone back and forth as a group here in terms of, like, should it be a little further back? Should it be more like a Main Street? And so I'm now hearing again, so there has been this, so I think it would be helpful tonight is if we could actually make it as a group, a determination, where should these houses be? Because the good news is with these lots, there's space for me to push them back, there's space for me to bring them forward. I personally like where they are now because I think it reads well with, it's clearly not competing with the historic resource, but it's aligned with it. And I think if you saw the earlier iterations, I am planning on putting these nice historic-looking lampposts, creating a streetscape. We had a little pocket park that we're going to put in there. I think it reads well when they're all kind of lined up nicely. That's just my opinion, but I would love to at least have some direction, because I think we've gone back and forth on this subject a couple of times now, so that would be helpful.
Is everybody's raising their hands now? No, I see your point. I think my thought was that depending on how these old developments were built, if a developer did them, they lined up, and if each person was buying their own lot, they tended not to line up. So it's kind of, where do you want to go? Commissioner Pelletier, you had your hand up before.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what I said last time about the existing neighborhood, and that your rendering cuts it off. I understand it's not in the historic district, but you are going to be building next to these existing homes that are closer up to the street. And I don't know the answer. I just know that it's very noticeable. You know, these lots have been vacant for a long time. You're going to build these nice new homes on that don't really look anything like the homes down the street. But as far as the streetscape, this will create sort of its own little pocket when you're coming down whatever street they're on. Holman, is that Holman? Because you've got all these little, you know, houses coming along, and then there's sort of, here's the new, you know, fancy houses, and then the big historic house on the hill. I just wish there was a way to kind of, like, you don't show the neighborhood, you're not trying to tie it into the existing neighborhood.
Well, it's a
And-
Rambler next to it. That's one story.
Right,
So
but it's there. You
Right.
can't ignore it, and just
Right.
by cutting off your rendering and not showing those houses, you're isolating this as its own thing, and it's part of a bigger neighborhood. As I said, I don't know what the answer is. I think when we originally talked about this, I was thinking you could kind of step the houses back, you know, so the one to the, whatever direction that is, would be a little bit closer to the street, and then the next one that's near the historic house would be further back, so that you'd sort of have this opening up. You'd have all the,
It's almost like a horseshoe
yeah,
kind
well,
of thing.
just sort of, you have all your little post-World War II houses along, and then it kind of opens up to the historic house, the view. I don't know if that would work. I understand why they're together. The other thing is for privacy, like if you stagger the houses, you know, you're not sort of coming out and looking at each other. Of course, you have the bays there, so you're not going to be staring at each other
Right.
from across the way. But that was my concern, was that it doesn't tie into the rest of the neighborhood. And I understand the rest of the neighborhood is not part of the historic district, but they're still your neighbors, and there's still a reason to blend what you can with landscaping or with the house position or something. I think there's more that you could do with it to accentuate the historic building and also acknowledge that you do have these other houses next door. Granted, maybe they're all tear downs and somebody's gonna come along and, you know, like, you can't
Which is
predict the
happening, which
future.
is
Yeah.
happening right now, yeah.
But that was not addressed. That was my big comment from last time, that I don't really feel like was addressed, but
There's not a
figured
whole
I'd
lot.
say it again.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot I could do, unfortunately,
yeah.
with that one. But I'm making a list, so so I have removed the metal roofing, change it to asphalt, make the hip roofs a little bit simpler. Can we make a decision on how we want the lots to be placed? Because that would be very helpful.
That's just my opinion. I don't know what everybody
Because
else.
when we had this conversation, the consensus was it should be where it is now because it reads like a kind of like, not a main street, but for better lack of a word, it just kind of looks nice lined up that way with a little bit of, you know, pushback a little bit from the historic resource. So, you know, it's not exactly aligned. That was what everyone agreed. But it would be very helpful right now for us to talk about this. Do we want to keep it? Do we want to move it? What do we want to do?
Commissioner Radu, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, I think in the beginning, in the first iteration, they were way back. I didn't like that. So I like them more closer to the street, but I actually like the idea that Chair Bird had, maybe Lot 8 house be slightly
Further back,
taken down, yeah,
like
back.
5 feet?
Yeah, I mean, just to, I'm looking at the width of the patio, yeah, and like
So
not to
25
have patio to
before
patio, just a
5
little
feet.
bit, a few feet there, maybe, I mean, I could support as it is, but I think that may be a little of an improvement from my perspective.
Is that what everybody wants?
Commissioner
Commissioner
Gall, I
Haynes.
can go both ways, either way.
Everyone's fine. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do.
No more comments.
Okay.
Commissioner,
I mean, you can tell I'm ready to, you know,
Well, I think, yeah, I guess I'm could go either way, quite frankly. But I think what's important to remember is where they're placed now still respects the historic resource. And I think we all agree that we want the homes set, that the historic resource needs to be sort of proud, if you will, of the new homes. The little rambler to the left of Lot 7, they're just going to be looking at the side of your house, and at least they'll be looking at a nice facade. But their whole backyard, if you look at this, the aerial on page 118, basically the front of your house will start at the back of that rambler, and it'll be 64 feet of, it'll be like a wall of their backyard. But that's, it is what it is. So whether the middle house steps back 5 feet or not, if you don't step it back enough, you're not going to see it from the street.
That's what I was going to say.
You got to go 10 feet. You got to really make it significant if you're going to step it, to make it read like it's stepped back. 5 feet's not enough. So I can support it as it is now, or if you do care to push it back significantly, then great, I'll support that too.
It sounds like it seems like it's okay, the status quo is fine.
All over, yeah.
Okay.
Well, would
Commissioner Dominiani?
we have to see it again?
I was just going to comment that I believe as well that 2504, if it was set back sufficiently, I enjoy the idea of the reveal of the historic house when walking along or driving along Holman. Like if that center home there is pushed back a bit further, then you're getting sort of more of the interesting side view of the historic house and everything. And yeah, 5 feet probably isn't enough. Considering the overall size, it's in percentage terms, very little actually in terms of the overall length, the depth of the house there. So
We're trying to give these houses a decent backyard because obviously there are 2-car garages back there, so there is some impervious surface back there. So that's just something that we've been trying to, we want these to be family homes where people can really enjoy the back. So that's something to consider as well. I'd like to keep it the way it is. I think it reads well, and I think it still gives deference to the historic resource. It sounds like that could work for the majority of you, so I'll plan on doing that. I'll be changing the roofing, make the design a little bit more simpler on the hip roofs. And then we'll try to see if we can reduce the height a little bit more. Go ahead, sorry.
I have a compromise to that. Right now, your new porch is aligning with the essentially the back face, the side porch of the historic resource. What if you simply pushed the new homes back, both of them back, the same distance, so that the front bump of your house aligns with that side porch return?
So you're saying the corner of my porch would be
So
at the
you're going to be moving it back like 8
side.
feet, right? So the bump in your front, essentially that, or not the bay per se, but that wing, you pull that back so it aligns with that inset there, which
So
is
what is that?
approximately about 8 feet.
So push it back 8 feet,
Yeah,
okay.
or whatever that
And then
is.
if I push back lot 8 feet, then I would also do it to lot 7?
I'd be good with that.
Okay.
You know what, for your own satisfaction, I'd go out there with some string and some stakes and stake this out just to get a feel for it.
Yeah, I like this, the way it reads now, but, one thing I'm also concerned about is what happens with the tree survey, because then you push it back, all of a sudden some trees could be going, it's already, we're getting rid of some trees that, maybe we should go to the tree survey. Just make sure there's nothing that changes. Looks like there's not anything per se on lot.
The only trees you're retaining are this one.
Right, so we're probably okay there.
You've got a tree on the corner of that porch of the 24, the center one, just too close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'll never survive.
And just so you know, the forest is not a high-quality forest, especially in the front. In the back, it's a little bit better, but in the front, it's pretty, let's not romanticize the
ratty.
trees in the front. In the back, you can have some, but
Would we need to see this again if he moves the houses? Or could we just make a motion that we're
Well,
good with where they are?
If we sit here and agree, we can take a poll of who thinks moving the house, whatever dimension, is worth their consideration, and then it's up to them. We're offering a suggestion on this one. We're not offering, you will do this kind of stuff.
Oh, that's true.
That is true, yeah.
Oh,
A straw poll, yeah.
sure, okay.
Okay, so we'll start down at Commissioner Galway. Would you like to say what is your opinion on pushing back 24 or 5?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Galway. I think when you're in front of looking at the houses, the rightmost house, the angle from the street, you're going to see at least half of the historic house. And as you pass in front of the middle home, you're going to be able to see probably the entire side of that house. So I'm not, I could accept and approve if the house was pushed back a little bit. I'm not, I don't see an awful need to do that. So I think my straw poll answer would be, I'd be perfectly happy with the way they are. And I did live those days when those two homes were way back, and I thought I think we all agreed it was too far back, so I don't want to get back into that discussion again. I appreciate the fact of having some grass or having some yard in the back, so if you came back in and said, I've evaluated everything and they're still here, I'd be okay with it. If you came in and said, I pushed the middle and back 5 feet, I'd be okay with that. If you start doing the middle and 15 feet, I think we're going around in circles.
you just lowered my civil engineering bill. I appreciate you.
So that's my comments.
Commissioner Doman?
I think we've gone around enough. I'm in favor of the way you have it drawn. I'm in favor of the way it is.
Awesome.
Your suggestion where you show it on this particular drawing is in front of us. It's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pelletier?
I think it's fine the way it is. I like the idea of pushing them back 8 feet, but then there's like no backyard. And,
Yeah.
and I think kids would rather play in the backyard than the front yard. So, the kids don't get a say. So I would rather vote on what we have in front of us, and I can support this. So I think it's fine the way it is.
This is Chair Burdett. I still like the idea of them not being completely aligned, and I don't even need 8 feet. I think 3 feet and you do it. It's not something that's supposed to be perceptible. It's just they're not, straight edge aligned. And little things like that, people never understand what they're seeing or feeling, but they do see it and they do feel it, and it might help. But I'm good with this as it is. Just see what you can do about the roof.
Kids don't play in the back anymore, so.
Mine do, mine do.
They don't.
Commissioner Haynes.
So anyways, I would prefer that they get pushed back, as I said, but if they don't, I won't fight it.
Commissioner Edu.
I could, either way, that's fine, to stay or go back a little bit.
And Commissioner Dominiani.
Look, man, I think that the center house, if it pushes back a couple feet, I would like it, but it is approvable as is. But I'd be happier, if it was my house, if I was doing it, I'd push it back a little bit.
There's your straw poll. Take with it what you will, but
So it sounds like the status quo is okay.
the status quo is okay,
Okay.
yes, yes.
I need a lot of direction these days because I'm just like, okay, so I think, thank you so much. This has been really helpful.
Thank you, and we'll see you for a hop soon.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you. No, he has to get a hop.
Well, no, he has to get a hop, but he doesn't necessarily have to come before us.
Oh, no, just for a hop, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, moving on, we are to meeting minutes. I read the meeting minutes. They are correct. I make a motion, I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of May 14th, 2025. Do I have a second?
Yes, I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The minutes are approved. Commission items,
No commission items.
staff
No-
items?
No staff items.
We are adjourned.